Mic'd Up Podcast, hosted by Dr. Mike Miller and Coby Duren of Central Baptist Church in Jacksonville, Texas, is a series of conversations about issues that matter. For people who have real questions and doubts, it covers topics of faith, theology, and philosophy in ways that are easy to understand. Ultimately, Mic'd Up is a podcast with a couple of guys having conversations about conversations you are having. Mic'd Up is produced by Al Lambert Jr. at Mic'd Up Studios in Jacksonville, Texas.
Which persona do you put on for me?
For you, the please don't fire me persona. I don't know.
No, that's not it.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a topic for you. Do you like hot dogs?
Yeah, of course. I'm an American. I like hot dogs. I like apple pie. I like baseball. I'm an American.
Baseball. Gosh. Mike.
American.
Mike.
Yeah.
There is something completely different about a hot dog cooked over an open fire.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Well, and I like a little black crispy on there too.
You get the black crispy. I mean, like there's something just magic.
I don't want a hot dog pulled out of boiling water. That doesn't do anything. And by the way, anything that comes on a hot dog, I'm okay with. Like you think of, onions, mustard, chili, ketchup, sauerkraut, whatever you think of putting on a hot dog, I'm okay.
I like it.
Yeah, stick it on there, man.
I'm with it.
Yeah.
I am with it. Put anything on the hot dog all at once.
Here's a question. Was a hot dog a sandwich?
I have had this question posed to me before.
It's a major debate in our country.
I think it's a sandwich.
I don't think it's a sandwich. I think it's a category unto itself. We have a fun topic today.
We do have
already
a fun
told
topic.
me what it is. So.
I have.
And I have a shout out.
Oh, you have a shout
Yeah,
out.
when it's time for a shout out.
Okay, I tell you what. Let's break this thing in right. Let's engage our audience correctly because this is the Mic'd Up Podcast.
The only one.
Where, you know what, I don't know if we are the only one, but...
Where there might be others.
There might be others. I mean, that's a pretty catchy name. Where we have the conversations.
About the conversations you are having.
That's it. That's the one. That's who we are.
Yeah.
We're the only one that does the one.
I have no idea what you just said,
I'm
going to agree with it.
I don't know what I said either. Who's your shout out? Who do you got?
Okay, well, let me just tell you, after our podcast last week, I have not gotten so many text messages and even phone calls. And I mean, it wasn't like a ton of them, but several people letting me know how much they appreciated it.
Yeah.
And we were hoping it would be a really helpful conversation. We were also kind of concerned, maybe some people get upset. I haven't heard any of that. But I want to give it, the first person I heard from was a pastor I know who is, he's down in the Houston, Baytown area, somewhere down around there.
Okay. Yeah.
And his name is Daniel Stone. He used to pastor in our area.
Right.
And Daniel just sent me a message telling me how much he appreciated it. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Daniel. So if you're listening, Daniel Grizzly Stone, buddy, thanks for tuning in.
Name.
It's not his middle name, but it's what we call him.
Dadgummit, I wish that was his middle name. That would be the greatest.
His parents missed an opportunity.
Daniel Grizzly. Oh, my goodness.
Daniel, if you're listening, how would you feel about changing your name legally?
Yes, legally changing your name. We'll pay for it. I haven't heard as much positive feedback from an episode that we've done. And we've heard good feedback from episodes.
But I think it was a topic that a lot of people have been wrestling with.
I think a lot of people have been wrestling with it. And I'll say, I'm actually rather shocked. I think that you handled it really, really well. So, I mean, I think that's fairly obvious. But I was anticipating some backlash. I mean, that's why we did the episode before that.
Yeah, that's right. About how
bit.
to disagree agreeably.
That's right.
And by the way, I heard from two people who said, I don't really think I agree with you, but I really like the way you handled it.
Oh, good.
And you gave me a perspective I haven't heard before.
Fair enough.
And one guy actually wants to get together and have some coffee and have a friendly conversation about it. Yeah. No division, no arguments. So that's the kind of conversations we want to have.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
And I mean, so anyways, it's been good. Now, today we're going to do something that is unique to the Mic'd Up podcast. Because our topic today, I am fairly confident we're going to disagree on.
That's awesome, because maybe we can model
how
to disagree. And by the way, this is only the second time that I know of that you've given me a topic ahead of time. Last week was
the first one. We're starting to make a new precedent.
But I think you wanted to make sure it was okay for us to have a topic where we were going to disagree.
Where we disagree. Yeah, I didn't want it to be divisive.
And I do. You know, this is one thing we've talked about before. You and I don't agree on everything.
Yeah.
I consider that a strength of our relationship.
Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, we agree that I'm right, even though we disagree on things.
Al, insert cricket sounds here. Cricket.
So here's our topic. All right, the topic, we just had the Super Bowl. The He Gets Us campaign for the second year in a row aired. I've heard from some people that they actually aired 2 commercials.
They did. They aired 2 different ones.
Okay, I didn't even see the other one.
Well, I think I did, but the one we're going to talk mostly about is the one that's getting the most.
It's probably a little bit more provocative. It sounds.
It was pretty provocative. And by the way, they've been airing these commercials not just at Super Bowl, but at other NFL games, and I've seen several of their commercials.
Well, since last year's Super Bowl, I've seen quite a few billboards
I've seen
and things
billboards.
like that. So, anyways, they do and we would encourage any listener, if you have, I'm sure you have probably engaged with it, but in the case that you haven't, you can YouTube He Gets Us. The particular commercial, because they have a ton of commercials, is the washing feet commercial.
Yeah.
And so let me start by saying this. I don't know that I have ever seen I'm going to go ahead and call it a Christian commercial.
I would, yeah.
A Christian commercial receives so much vitriol from the Christian community. I'm trying to think if there has been this much backlash that is fairly aggressive.
I would remove the word fairly. It's just been aggressive.
It's been aggressive.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of make my position on the on the commercial, and then I want to hear from you. Because we talked about this, 2 minutes?
Hold on, let me just give a setup for anybody that hasn't seen it. It's a commercial. So what He Gets Us is giving the message that Jesus gets us. Like, you're struggling, he knows where you are, he knows who you are. Right. Nobody's going to argue. Well, I say nobody would argue with that. Somebody's going to argue with literally anything.
Anything and everything.
Yes. But in this commercial, it shows various people washing the feet of other people. And so, for example, I think it shows a policeman washing the feet of like a gang member, and it shows somebody protesting outside an abortion clinic washing the feet of a woman. And I think the idea is maybe the woman just came out of the abortion clinic, something like that. And
there's like an oil rig worker with a climate activist.
Yes,
and
yes.
Like that,
And so that's what it's about. And it says something like, Jesus didn't teach hate.
Yes.
He washed feet.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that was the message.
So that's what's going on here.
Right. So this is my overall, this is just my very broad opinion, then we're going to kind of get into the weeds after this. Okay. I have one pretty significant criticism of the He Gets Us movement, and we'll get to that here in just a second.
Well, and let's talk about the commercial, and then let's talk about the movement.
Okay, we'll talk about
we'll talk about we can talk about it at the same time, but those are 2 different topics.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to say I'm a fan of the commercial. Mm-hmm. And we can get into the movement here in just a second. I'm a fan of the commercial, and I'll tell you why. And this is where like the 2 things kind of come together. If I'm right, my perceived understanding of what they're trying to accomplish, I think they hit the nail on the head.
Okay. So what were they trying? What's your perceived understanding of what they were trying to accomplish?
What I think that they're trying to accomplish is they are trying to reach the religious nuns. Not N-U-N, but the N-O-N-E.
People that claim no religious affiliation.
Right. It's the fastest growing group in America.
Fastest growing religious group.
Religious group in America,
Religious category.
Religious category. Now, surprisingly, atheism is not a huge portion of the religious nuns, but it's a lot of people that say they are spiritual, but they've been burnt by the church,
a lot of them would say they believe in Jesus, but they don't claim like a denomination, and they don't even want to wear the label Christian.
Right. They don't want to. They don't want to get too into.
That's right. So it's a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a broad category.
So my perception of what they're trying to do is they're trying to reach those people primarily and get them interested in who Jesus was.
Yep.
And if that's the kind of the understanding there, then I think that the commercial, even by its virtue of just being provocative in a sense, probably accomplished that. So for that reason, I'm going to say that if I'm writing the commercial myself, I'm going to put some different things in there.
Yep.
I'm going to probably put a little bit extra detail in there.
Right.
But
you got 30 seconds.
Yeah. Can you believe that nobody asked me to write the commercial?
30 seconds, which is like what? $5 million or something?
Yeah, I want to say that the commercial costs because it's a 1 minute commercial.
And that's not even the production of it. That's just buying the airtime.
Right. Yeah. And so if I was going to write it, I would write it differently, but nobody asked me to write it. So with that being said, I would say I'm a fan of the commercial because I think that it's accomplishing what their goal is.
Great. Okay.
What are your thoughts on it?
Okay. I think I'm not going to disagree with you as strongly as you think.
Okay.
Because I am neither opposed to it nor do I support it. But I'm not exactly neutral because I do have opinions about it. In fact, I would tell you that I really appreciate their motive. I think their motive is to get conversations going.
Okay. So we agree in the motive.
I think that they're hoping that like the Christian who lives next door to the non-Christian will say something like, "Did you see that commercial?
Yeah.
What did you think?" And be able to start a conversation. I think they're hoping maybe even there was somebody, like there was a pride demonstration or something, the pride flags, and there was somebody washing the feet of a gay or a trans person. It happens pretty fast. It's hard to take it all in. But, you've got this gay friend. How can you have that conversation? Yeah. I also think their motive, I think there's two motives here. I think one motive, which is a good motive, is, a lot of times we do see people who are different than us as our enemy. The term that Alan Jacobs uses is it's the repugnant cultural other. If I'm a Republican and you're a Democrat, then you're repugnant to me, you're an other, you're on the other side, we can't be friends. And I think it's an idea that's saying to Christians, hey, Jesus washed people's feet.
Yes.
Why don't we go serve people instead of getting in culture wars?
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to combat the culture war mentality.
Yeah, and it does. I actually read an article on their website today. They did that because they said, hey, we are anticipating this political climate that we're about to enter into to be very divisive.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think that they were trying to speak to some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I'm sorry. I think I might have.
No, that's okay. So I appreciate the motive.
Yeah.
I do have some concerns with their messaging.
Okay.
And with the organization itself.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Now, let me tell you where I am. I've got concerns with the messaging, but here's what I'm seeing from a lot of Christians. You guys know I'm on Twitter. It's X. I know it's X.
Come on, Mike.
I'm on Twitter, and what I'm seeing a lot of guys do is they're calling it blasphemous.
Yeah.
Heretical.
Yeah.
And it's not. I'm sorry. It's just not. If you look at the Bible at what blasphemy is, I don't think this is blasphemous. I don't think they're teaching a false doctrine. The charge is, well, they're promoting a false Christ. So I go about it with what Paul said when he was in prison writing to the Philippians. He says in Philippians chapter 1, he's heard that people are preaching Christ with the wrong motives. So this is a little different because it's talking about motives. Yeah. I think their motives are pure. It says, some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill. The latter do it out of love, knowing I'm put here for the defense of the gospel. The former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. So, no, I don't. I don't go, well, hey, as long as the Mormons are preaching Christ, that's a different Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't advocate preaching a false Christ in any way, but the charge is that they're presenting a false Christ.
Right.
I'm going to say, I don't think they're presenting a false Christ. I actually know one of the guys that's a part of the organization.
Oh, really?
Well, it's Ed Stetzer.
He's a part of the organization?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
he's a part of the organization. He's really promoting it. Ed Stetzer's as solid biblically as they get. I mean, he was just installed as the dean at Talbot School of Theology. And I mean, this he's legit. So I don't think there's any heresy. I don't think it's a false Christ. My concern is that while it's not a false Christ, I don't think they're painting, how do I want to say this? I think they could do a better job.
Yeah.
There's some of the message that bothers me, but not to the point that I would slam it, say it's false teaching. By the way, there's a lot of vitriol on the other side.
Yeah.
Because one of the guys that funds it is David Green, who has, he's the founder of Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, Hobby Lobby, yeah.
And he's apparently put millions and millions in there. Well, as you know, David Green has come out in support of marriage between a man and a woman.
Yes.
And he doesn't believe homosexuality is, well, he believes it's sinful, and he doesn't believe in abortion.
Right.
Therefore, a lot of what I'm seeing from the other side, and again, we're so polarized. So you've got these far, far right that's just blasphemy. And then you've got these others that going, well, it's just hypocrisy because one of the guys behind it is a guy that promotes hate.
Yeah.
And he's a hateful human being. And so he's using subterfuge and putting these out. And both of those extremes, I disagree with.
Yeah, and I've seen people attack them because, like, these donors are fairly private.
Yeah.
They're kind of hard to get to find out who it is.
That's exactly
to
right.
my knowledge, the hobby, remind me his name again?
David Green.
Yeah, he's the only one where I've actually seen his name attached to it.
Yeah.
But, apparently, like, the group has funded like some anti-abortion laws and things like that.
In other words, they're your typical mainstream evangelical Christian.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like so I know that they're kind of getting it from both sides there.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. What in the messaging, you said that you had some problems with the messaging itself.
Mm-hmm.
What in the messaging did you feel like was most problematic?
So I've got a couple of things.
Okay.
One, here's a thing I've seen on Twitter a lot. So you and I are Christians. If we hear the phrase, hey, we need to wash each other's feet. If you hear that phrase, what does that mean to you?
I hear that as humble servitude.
Okay, so stop right there.
Okay.
Take the church out of it.
Okay.
Is foot washing something that happens today?
Like the actual physical act of washing? No.
Right.
It's not a need.
So why did they wash feet back in Bible times?
Because, I mean, like, it was a legitimate need. And
they wore sandals, their feet were filthy. They went into somebody's house. They would provide a lowly servant to wash the feet of their guests.
And correct me if I'm wrong, too, like, literally the way that you would sit at a table, you're going to have somebody's foot pretty close to your.
That's exactly right. So it was important to have clean feet because they
Right.
didn't sit at chairs. They reclined. They had these low tables. They reclined at them. And so it was a big deal. We don't do that today. So you and I know what foot washing means. We also know that Jesus washed the feet of his disciples before the Last Supper. We know there's a time when Jesus had his feet washed, and the religious person rebukes this immoral woman, or rebukes Jesus for letting this immoral woman wash his feet. And Jesus said, well, I came into your house and you didn't provide anybody to wash my feet. And so it was a big deal. So we know that.
Yeah.
People with no biblical knowledge or church background don't. And so here's a lot of the comments I've seen on Twitter. I didn't know Jesus had a foot fetish.
No way.
Really? And people are asking questions like, what is this about washing people's feet? That is creepy. Are they trying to tell me that Christians need to wash my feet? No, thank you. So I think this particular commercial, to the unchurched, I mean completely unchurched, they don't know. Why do you want me to take my shoes off and have some preacher wash my feet? Ick.
I got you. Okay, so this would be my comment to that. So I'm not a marketer. So I'm not even convinced of what I'm about to say. I'm just coming at it from like a quote unquote layman's perspective. When I see a commercial like that is drawing lots of questions for me, I'm going to try to go to where the commercial leads me. The last thing you see on the commercial is hegetsus.com.
Yeah.
So today, what I did, I went to YouTube and I typed in he gets us foot washing. I didn't go to their website. I went to YouTube. YouTube, I clicked on the video, and it sent me to YouTube. Actually, sent me to their website.
Okay.
And on their website, the very first thing that pops up, you have the commercial, and it says, in fact, I can even probably pull it up pretty easy. But one of the first things that you see is, why did we choose foot washing and what is foot washing? And then it takes you to an article basically explaining, hey, this is the cultural background behind it. This is what it means for us today. And it even gives like some suggestions of like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say like buying a meal for somebody or something like that. Like that would be like humble servitude towards an individual. And so I guess my response to that would be like, it appears like, and I could be way off, but it appears like what they were trying to do is to get people to their website, hegetsus.com, and once you got there, it really kind of went into the explanation and things like that.
I get that. And I get that. And that's why I said my criticisms are not harsh criticism. They're just concerns that I have. And, I kind of think, what if they did instead of washing people's feet, Jesus washed people's feet, what if they did a Jesus served people?
Yeah.
And showed people, feeding the hungry, helping people who are hurting, just whatever. Anyway, so.
Would that have been as provocative, though?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And do you think that, so I guess it all goes back to purpose. If you use that methodology of saying, hey, do we Jesus serve people? Do you get as many Google searches? Do you get as many people trying to because I think that would be something that most people would be like, we kind of get that Jesus serve people. That's
I understand. Yeah, and I get that. I really do. And a lot of people are calling it pre-evangelism, and I get that pre-evangelism is important. I mean, I don't always just when I meet somebody and I want to tell them about Jesus, this is what I used to do when I first became a Christian. Say, hey, can I ask you a question? If you died tonight, do you know for certain you'd go to heaven? I don't do that now. I try to build a relationship with them. I try to have conversations about things that matter.
Can I ask you why you've changed? So putting the commercial aside for a second, why did you have the change in my evangelism? Yeah.
Because as a new Christian, I had a guy take me kind of under his wing and taught me how to share the gospel using the evangelism explosion method.
Oh, yeah.
Which starts with these questions. By the way, evangelism explosion actually starts with talking about your personal backgrounds, getting to know people. But I didn't know that. He just taught me that.
He taught you the go-to
And we
questions?
we would go out and we'd just go to an apartment complex and start knocking on doors. People would open the door and we'd go, hey, I'm Mike, this is Tim. If you died tonight, do you know for certain you'd go to heaven? It was ineffective.
Was it ineffective back then too?
Oh, it was terribly ineffective.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't know. People may have gotten saved. I'm not sure. Actually, there's one young lady that we actually said that to, and we found out later, and she accepted Christ. She invited us in. Found out later she had been diagnosed with HIV that day.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
And had been thinking about her mortality. So God can use everything, right? But I'm telling you that it's even more so now. For one thing, now if you knock on doors, they don't even open the door. So things have changed, and I think leading with a question like that just puts up a barrier.
Yeah.
And it also almost has this hey, you're a project for me, not a person. And when we can build a relationship, and then, because people are not a project. I mean, I do have a mission to win people to Jesus, but not because of any selfishness on my part. Right. I want people to hear the good news and embrace it. And I want to build relationships with people. I mean, people are really important. And so, anyway, again, I'm not completely critical of the commercial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Theologically, I got a couple of issues there, and for one, when Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, he told them to do that.
Yes.
To one another.
Yes.
There's no example in the Bible of Christians washing the feet of
Right.
people outside the church.
Right.
And there are some churches that have actually made foot washing an ordinance, like baptism, Lord's Supper, foot washing.
Yeah, would that be like the Eastern Orthodox?
I don't know. I think some in the Brethren tradition
Okay.
do that. But it is always seen as this is sort of a private thing that Christians do for
Yes.
each other.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's a symbolic act. I mean, clearly, we've talked about this. People don't literally need their feet washed today. So it was a symbolic act. And so, the other example is the woman washing Jesus's feet. And so this is one of the other content issues I had with it. I felt like it took a side. It picked a side. The commercial did. In other words, here's what I saw. Christians bad, sinners good. And let me tell you why. Just the whole thing. Jesus didn't teach hate like most Christians do. Now, they didn't say like most Christians do, but to me, it was slightly offensive.
Okay.
That like our church doesn't teach hate, and you know what? We serve a lot of people and get our hands dirty serving a lot of people at home and abroad. And you're telling the world, Christians don't really get this. Christians, what are they doing? They're showing the Christians protesting an abortion clinic, which, by the way, is not hateful. But the implication is that's hate.
Yeah.
Christians opposing the LGBT.
It could be hateful depending on how you go.
So, of course it could.
Yeah.
Of course, you and I both know hateful Christians.
Yeah.
Like these guys out there, blasphemy. Okay. And there are guys on Twitter going, Jesus actually did teach hate. Yeah. Oh, dudes. And I mean, we go to the passage to get, here are some things that God hates. Yes, God hates sin. In fact, he's going to condemn some sinners to hell, for eternity. We're all sinners. But my goodness, that is not the way to respond to this.
Yeah.
But I felt like they're telling the unbelieving world, we get it. The church is preaching hate, but not Jesus. And I felt like that was the message. And also, it's this, also, the whole idea, he gets us. He does. I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah.
He does get us. But it's almost like, you're in a gang, it's okay. You're in a gay marriage, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're having an abortion, Jesus gets that, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the message, but here's the one-sided thing is, and by the way, if I am opposed to any of those things, then am I being hateful? And we're accused of that, and I felt like this reinforced that. But here's one-sided. Why couldn't we say, by the way, I love the idea of the policeman. I like the policeman washing the guy in the gang's feet, right? I like that. Why didn't we see a gangbanger washing the feet of a policeman?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the woman that washed Jesus' feet was not your most upstanding citizen, right? And she washed his feet with her tears and dried them with her hair.
Yeah.
Why didn't we see a BLM activist washing a policeman's feet? What if they had somebody washing the feet of a woman carrying an End Abortion Now sign?
Yeah.
What if they had somebody like, I don't know how to describe, but somebody in the gay community washing an evangelical pastor's feet?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the point I'm making is that it's almost like the Christians are the bad guys here.
Yeah.
And so, again, I do not believe that was their intention. I don't think everybody's going to get that. But, and man, good night. I'd hate for there to be a podcast, somebody out there critiquing every little thing I said in every sermon I've ever preached. Because,
You've had your critics that have probably have tried things like that, yeah.
Yeah, a guy wrote an article about how the church needs to fire me immediately, which was fun. Right?
What was it? You're a decent motivational speaker.
Oh, that was the guy this week on Twitter. No, I'm a bad motivational speaker. And I said, look, I'm at least a mediocre preacher. And he had a very vulgar name to call me. I don't even know the guy, but I actually thought that was funny. It was just, I thought it was funny. But anyway, I don't want somebody picking me apart, and we can sit and pick this apart, but I do think, hey, let's get some theologians at the table And let's put this message out there, but let's make sure we're showing a better rounded picture of the church. And let's don't throw the church under the bus. And I really feel like they did that.
So here's I have so here's the two things that I would say in response, I guess.
Okay.
Number, I don't know. I didn't see them as throwing the church under the bus. I will say this. I do think, and on their website, they try to say that we are apolitical. Mm-hmm. I do think that they threw conservatives under the bus with this one.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, because just a lot
Which is
of the
where
pictures,
most of our evangelicals are.
Which is where most of the evangelicals
Not
are.
all,
You're right. Not
but
all.
most.
Yeah, for 100%. Mm-hmm. So I didn't necessarily see it as like a church thing that like, hey, we're throwing the church under the bus. I did see it as like, if I was going to be as objective as I possibly could, I would be like, you know what? Most of the people who are doing the feet washing seem to have some sort of like, golly, this is such a stereotype, so I apologize. But like, if you were going to paint a conservative Republican, like you'd be like, okay, like that's typically what
guy
you're
in a
seeing
blue
there.
suit with a red tie, bad guy.
Bad guy.
That's exactly right.
And so, like, I do think that they probably drifted out there, but there was another element that I tried to see, and I'll say that this was like one of my first thoughts that I had. So I can definitely see where somebody would interpret this differently, and I don't want to like impose my thoughts on somebody else. I thought to myself, man, I would really, if they were going to include Coby Duren in a picture, I would want to be the one washing feet. Because like I felt like it was an honor, right? And so like at the very last picture that probably was the most provocative, in my opinion, where you have like, it's very clearly like a gay guy, a gay young man with I think it's like a priest. I mean, he kind of dressed up like a Catholic. I was like, man, like praise God that like here we have the clergy that is represented. And it was kind of like an honoring
So let
thing.
me say this too, and we've talked about this, I'm pretty sure, on this podcast before. The church is not, I mean, the evangelical church today is too concerned, and maybe we can just do a podcast on this sometime, about culture wars. We're at war with the culture.
Yeah.
And
You hear that a lot.
yeah, and I'm worn out by the culture wars, frankly. And what has happened is we have taken our convictions. We believe homosexuality is a sin. We believe abortion is a sin. We believe cohabiting is a sin. I mean, there are a lot of things out there. A lot of times we have not been very gracious toward people in those communities.
Yeah.
We have not always been very gracious to the gay community.
Yeah.
And we can oppose their lifestyle and their behavior and love them and be kind to them. And we haven't always done that. So I will admit that, so I feel like they threw the church under the bus. There has been some of that.
There has, no doubt.
And I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
And so I think if it makes a Christian think, whoa, maybe I should be serving my gay neighbor instead of condemning my gay neighbor.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal, Jesus said in John chapter 3 that he didn't come to condemn the world because the world's already condemned.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sugarcoat it if my gay neighbor says, so do you believe we're wrong? Yeah, I do.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But let me cut your grass when you're out of town. Hey, we made a pie. Here you go. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. And so, I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt that they are doing that. So this is why I say, I can't just say, oh man, this is great, but I'm also not like, it's terrible.
Right. And I'd say this too, because you brought up a point that I agree with wholeheartedly. If somebody stops at the commercial, you're probably going to go to some conclusions that are not fully
right. So let's talk about the organization for just a minute. And one thing I don't like is that the organization, there's a lot of cryptic. Who are you? Who are you feeling? What do you believe? You go on their website, you can't really figure out what they believe.
They won't tell you.
They won't tell you. I don't like that. Tell me what you believe.
So here's my critique.
Okay.
This is my critique. I actually am not. So I mean, I tried to scorch their website up and down. Number one, I was trying to find, what do you guys believe?
Yeah.
And it became clear they were not going to tell us.
They're not going to tell you.
And so I'm trying to be objective about it. And I was like, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of this, but if your goal is to reach these nuns and just to help them see, hey, these are some things that Jesus did. So maybe you've had a bad experience with the church, with Christians, or something like that. But maybe you're an activist, or you're a kind of a social justice warrior or whatever. Well, here's some ways that Jesus, these are some things that he did.
Yeah.
So maybe you can find some common ground and then take the next step.
Yeah.
If that's all that they're trying to do, I'm not.
Okay, well, also, I don't
Super
think
negative?
they need to have a full statement of, I don't think they need to necessarily, like our Baptist Faith and Message says, we believe marriage is between a husband and a wife, and it has, a lot of what we believe about, baptism and stuff. But tell me, these are a few of the things we believe, some of those core beliefs.
There's got to be some core beliefs in there, right?
So that a guy like me can go, okay, they're right on the core beliefs, let me send them a check.
Well, and not only that, it's implicit in the message that they believe that there is something divine about Jesus, right?
Absolutely.
It is a well established. There was a man named Jesus from Nazareth who was crucified 2,000 years ago. The question of Christianity is, did he rise again? By you saying he gets us in the present tense, you're making a claim about it.
He understands. He knows who I am.
Yeah, but tell us something about tell us something about what you think about the Bible. Tell us something about what you think about.
One of the things they say is on the Q&A on their website, it says, "Are you trying to get people to go to church?" And their answer is no.
Yes, I have seen that.
And I understand, and I wish they would say that is not our priority.
Yes,
but we do believe in the local church.
Yes.
And I know that we can go get on their network where they will recommend people to our church. They will do that. But here's something that happened, and I'm going to tell you, I don't like it.
Okay.
When this first came out, I know some guys who called their 800 number, and these are Baptist preachers who called and said, I want to talk to somebody, and they're talking to whoever's on the phone, and they say, can you help me find a church in my area? And they go, but you need to understand, I'm gay, and I'm looking for a church that won't condemn me. And the responses they got were, that's not a problem. And I don't know if for certain they're willing to partner with pro-LGBTQ churches. And people listen like, oh, so you're against that. We are. We believe that's unbiblical.
Yeah.
We don't think a church should promote that.
I don't think it's healthy for anybody to go to an LGBT affirming church.
Exactly. But these guys said they were referred to some LGBT affirming churches.
Interesting. So I did.
And by the way, that's what these guys say. And I want to say that if you're calling somebody and lying, you are lying. That's
a good point.
You're a liar. That's not okay. This is not in the, you're not a police officer who's involved in a sting, right? You are using subterfuge to advance your agenda or whatever. And I think if I have to lie to advance the Christian agenda, then I've gone off the rails somewhere.
So here's where this, in my searching, this is we're kind of on the same page here. I am on the home page right now as we're speaking. I'm on the home page of He Gets Us. You scroll down just a hair, and it says featured, and it has the commercial, and then it's got what is foot washing, and anyways, loving your neighbor's hard. Who is my neighbor? These are articles you can read that are supposed to provide clarity for that.
It's a great message.
I love
loving
that.
your neighbor's hard.
I think that that's good. Now, then you get into the take action, and this is where things get interesting.
Okay.
You go to take action, and they give you two ways you can take action. The first one, I love. It has all these Bible reading plans. It's read about Jesus. And so there's all these Bible reading plans rooted in Scripture. And I actually think that Ed Stetzer has endorsed some of that. I think he's kind of guided a little bit of the process.
He has.
Then we get to the second way that you can connect, and it says connect locally. All right, so I click on it, explore your questions in a group. That's what it says, which it still has me on a He Gets Us looking website, but the heading, the URL has changed.
Okay.
All right, now I say explore your questions, which is the only option I have from there. And it takes me to a group called Alpha USA.
Okay, Alpha, yeah.
I don't know anything about this, and I'm going to here's what my problem is. I have been on their website. I've reached out to them. Now, granted,
To Alpha or
to Alpha, to Alpha. I can't find anything about these guys.
Really?
I mean, not on their website,
Okay.
and that bothers me. So, like, if he gets us, wants to say, hey, look, we're just going to be the group that gets you to the next stage.
Yeah.
Well, then by all means, get somebody to a stage that is going to get them to the local church. And so tell me about Alpha. Maybe you can
Okay,
provide.
so Alpha is a really cool thing. We actually looked at launching this at my last church, and
Okay.
there is a solid evangelical church in New Orleans
Okay.
that has Alpha. And so what Alpha is, like, let's say our church was going to start Alpha. What we would do is once a month, we would host a dinner.
Okay.
And at this dinner, we're providing a meal. And by the way, a good meal.
Okay.
So if you do Alpha, you got to pony up some dollars to do this right.
Okay.
So you provide a good meal. And you sit around tables at this meal, and what you do is you have trained table leaders,
Okay.
but you invite the community, and you get people to invite their interest. Hey, man, come to this thing. We're going to have dinner. We're going to have discussion. You can talk about anything you want to. Like, nothing is off the table. And but what they do is they have topics, but they're dealing with, they may talk about, some of the cultural things going on there. But
Okay.
they've got these topics, and they're sitting around the table, and it's really an apologetics ministry because they're coaching people. Like if somebody says, well, I'm gay and I don't have a problem with that, how do you respond to that? And so, man, this one church in New Orleans has had tremendous success reaching people.
Interesting.
New Orleans is a very unreached community, and I think the community has to be right. Like in East Texas, I'm not sure Alpha would be a thing because what you want to build is, hey, come for dinner and join a discussion about religious matters, cultural matters, things like that. And I think Alpha is a solid group. Their materials are solid.
Okay,
We looked
that's
at
fair
them
enough.
several years ago, and I know that Alpha is used a lot. Like, and if Alpha comes back and says, no, we're not, here's what I've heard, that in Europe, which is very, very unchristian now, very non-Christian.
Okay.
Like in England, there's Alpha groups all over the place because the idea is people who are thinking about spiritual matters will come have a spiritual conversation that is not Sunday morning church. It's not a sermon. It's not even a teaching time. It's a discussion with somebody.
Okay, so that's it. That gives me. I feel like I probably need to dial the critique back just a little bit because it does sound like they are passing people along to. I couldn't find anything about their
Here's what
beliefs.
I don't like on any website.
Yeah.
Find out more, click here. Now click here. Now click here.
Kinda
At
taking you-
some point, it feels like a bait and switch. And that really bothers me. I don't mind clicking a couple of times, but tell me what's going on.
Yeah. So,
Because here's what I'm afraid is that somebody who's really seeking is either going to get frustrated with that process and give up, or they're going to go, I didn't know this was what you people were about. This is one of the reasons we started our new member class at church is, and we've had 2 people go through our new member class that afterwards said, this has been great. I've learned this is not the church for me.
yeah.
Because I want to get this, I want to get who we are and how we operate and what we believe out front
Right.
so you can make a valid decision. I don't want somebody 2 years later and go, wait, I didn't know that's what the church believed.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
Let me ask you this: if you were a unchurched individual, if you were an unchurched individual that belonged to the LGBT community, and I'm trying to process this real time here, and I see a Super Bowl commercial and it's like, hey, oh, okay, well, here's a priest washing the feet of somebody who kind of looks like me or something like that. Let me go check out their website. I'm reading all this stuff about
First
what
off,
Jesus
my
did.
first thought is gay-friendly Christians. Thank God. That's going to be my first
probably
thought.
so. Probably, yeah. I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of people who think that. And then this group, they have all these articles and things like that you can read, and then they pass you on to the next. Do you think that it's effective evangelism to withhold Well, I think you probably already just answered this. I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, though. Do you think it would be effective evangelism in a modern context to withhold Christianity's explicit teaching about homosexuality until later, or would you?
Now,
okay.
I have gay friends,
Yeah.
okay, who know where I stand and what I
Yeah.
believe. But let's say I meet a gay person, which happens. I don't start out with, hey, just so you know, I think the way you live is sinful.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that up front. I don't do that. But if I start talking to them about Jesus and they go, can I just stop you right there and ask you what you believe? I'm going to say, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if they're on there wanting to know,
Then you need to be forthright.
you
with it.
just need to, yes. And, I'm actually talking a little bit, not about this exact subject, but about the trust. Trust for churches and religious organizations and clergy members is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
And part of it is that we're not transparent enough.
And by the way, you're saying that you and I have had this conversation, just for our listeners, this is a statistical fact. Like, this isn't just Mike, saying,
No.
is
In
that
fact,
all-time low.
I am using this from a recent study from Gallup polling, not a Christian organization, Gallup. Professions ranked by ethical standards ratings, percentage who say members of these professions have high or very high levels of honesty and ethics. Clergy, 32%.
Man.
By the way, members of Congress, 6%.
At least we beat those guys.
Who do you think's at the top? Which profession?
Doctors?
It's nurses.
Nurses.
Nurses
Okay.
is 78%. Shout out to my daughter Bailey, who is a
Okay.
listener to this show and is in nurse anesthetist school right now. Nurses. Number 2, veterinarians.
Golly. No way.
Then engineers, then dentists, then medical doctors.
With vet prices these days, I don't see how in the world. Anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Clergy are trusted less than police officers, less than chiropractors, but more than bankers, journalists, lawyers, and members of Congress. 32% of the population believes we have high or very high levels of honesty and ethics. So I think we have to be, for one thing, I think the church, everything should be done in the light of day anyway. But we have to, and I'm not talking about confidential matters, family matters. We have to go the extra mile in being open and honest. Yeah, that goes with our finances, that goes with our beliefs.
Yeah. Because
if people are already not trusting us, hey, let me click here to see what they believe. Oh, well, I got to click here. I got to click here. What are they trying to hide from me?
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that's a legitimate critique.
So,
I mean, I do think, now I'll say this, I think it's a legitimate critique from a very pure perspective. Like, I don't think that I think that these guys, from what I can tell, like, they have come to the conclusion, this is the best way to actually reach these people for the gospel.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's like underhanded or anything like that.
And let's sort of wrap this up, because I want to say this. If you're genuinely trying to reach people for Jesus, I may disagree with your technique, your methodology.
Yeah.
But can I tell you, I like your way of reaching people for Jesus way better than anybody's way of not reaching people for Jesus.
That's right.
We had a guy in our town. He's dead now. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a wonderful man. But man, he was very aggressive in his gospel. Not aggressive in a bad way, but he was very forward.
Yeah. He tried to get me saved a couple times.
Hey, the first time I met him, I don't even think I'd moved here yet, or I had just moved here. I was sitting in a restaurant eating. He came over to my table because he didn't know me.
Yeah.
And he introduced himself. I told him, I'm the new pastor at Central Baptist Church. He immediately started asking me about my salvation.
Oh my gosh.
And then when I told him about my salvation, he left me some gospel tracts for me to look at later. And if you don't need these, hand these out. And people used to be so critical of this guy. Oh, yeah, he's out there. He's just, he's so forward and in people's faces, and he's not. And I used to tell people, I would go, what's your method? And when they would just look at me, I'd say, you know what? His method is not mine, but I like his method of evangelism better than your method of no evangelism.
I'm going to say this. I actually was proud to know him.
I was proud.
I mean, I'm telling you, he like you just said, he tried to get me saved at the church.
Hey, let me tell you a story about him. Not long before he died, he was in the hospital. This was not like his last days, but he had to go to the hospital for something. We were in Vacation Bible School that week.
Yeah.
And somebody said, hey, did you hear that he's in the hospital? I said, I didn't. So as soon as VBS was over, I went over. And it was the day on VBS we shared the gospel with kids. And for anybody listening, we don't manipulate. We only share the gospel, like give an opportunity for salvation to the older kids. And we have one-on-one counseling with them, or one-on-two really, to make sure that they know and understand. And so I went to see him. And I walked in, and he's sitting in the chair beside his hospital bed. He's got this tray in front of him. And here's what he's doing. He's got note cards, and he's copying scripture passages onto the note cards. That's all he's doing. He's just copying them down so he can memorize them.
Oh, man.
And I visited with him for a while. He was so happy to see me, and I visited with him for a while. And I said, hey, can I tell you something? He said, what? I said, we're in VBS right now, and today 5 kids accepted Jesus.
Yeah.
He burst into tears.
Wow.
He started weeping, and he said, let's pray for them right now. Let me tell you something. I'll take his evangelism.
I'll take it any day.
Over and over. And he gets us. I've got some issues.
Yeah.
I've got some concerns. But if they're giving opportunity to have gospel conversations, and if these people, if their motives are pure here, and they're really trying to preach Jesus, I have a hard time, objecting to them.
Yeah.
I would like to offer some friendly advice.
Yeah.
But man, if you guys want to keep putting your money in and it's getting people to talk about Jesus, and if people are coming to Jesus, keep going.
Yeah.
And by the way, I may have just lost friends by saying that.
Well, but I think
because
that
people are so angry.
Well, I think that what you're saying there is like, you talked about, because I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jesus's command to wash the feet, like that was something for the disciples to do, for Christians to do to other Christians.
Yeah.
How in the world, with some of the vitriol that this movement or this ad campaign has received, how is that washing anybody's feet? That's not washing anybody's feet.
The way they're attacking other Christians, it's not washing their brother's feet.
No, I mean, it's just like that. That's not.
By the way, they're attacking Ed Stetzer and David Green. And
two guys who...
let's think about whose feet Jesus washed. Judas.
Judas, that's right. Yeah.
Who had already betrayed him.
Yep.
And he washed his feet.
Peter, who
was a knucklehead. Yeah.
I will never abandon you. I'll never leave you.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this is a great discussion, and I hope Christians talk about it.
Yeah.
And I hope if you're out there as a Christian, go, well, I don't like the way because I don't like the way they did it either, okay? But what if those of us who don't like it thought, okay, we've said we don't like the way they did it. What's a better way to do it, and how can I practice that better way to do it myself? Okay, I'd rather them have said, how can you serve your neighbor? Jesus served his neighbor. How am I serving my neighbor?
Yeah, I hope it gets people thinking. And I think we can also say too, like instead of the vitriol, start praying that everybody who visits that website will actually get to a good local church where they can,
Yeah.
I can't remember what the number was, and I'm not even sure if I saw the exact number. But after this ad was put out there, like the Google searches for Jesus went out the roof.
Yep.
And man, I'm hoping.
And let's be honest, you Google search Jesus, you're going to get the good and the bad.
You're going to get a lot of stuff.
But
you're going to get a lot of stuff.
If people are thinking about Jesus and talking about Jesus, and will ask questions about Jesus and hear about Jesus, man, it's like when the disciples said to Jesus, hey, we saw some people baptizing in your name and they're not part of us. So we stopped them, and Jesus is like, no. Mm-hmm. Whoever is not against us is for us.
Yeah. That's a
Now, he also
word.
later said, whoever's not with me is against me. But I don't think that he gets us people are against us.
No, I agree. I think that they are trying their best to reach. And I think, regardless of whatever they sound, I think that they're trying to reach a very specific group of people, and I'm hoping that they do.
So you and I had some minor disagreements, but so what?
Well, I mean, listen, Al can edit out all the cussing and fighting and arguing.
Yeah, we assume by the time you're listening to this, it's been all
It's gonna be
up.
it's gonna be pretty mild and everything like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've already got our shout out for it. Who was that?
Daniel Grizzly Stone.
Daniel Grizzly Stone in Baytown.
I'm not sure he's in Baytown. He's somewhere down in that area of Houston, Baytown, and he's probably thinking, you know where I am.
Well, listen.
And I did, but I'm not that sharp, Daniel.
Grizzly.
So bear with me. Grizz.
It is an honor to get a shout out on the Mic'd Up podcast
Yes, it
with
is.
our international audience.
That's right.
So, well done, Grizz. Well done. All
Thanks
right,
for
folks.
listening.
Yeah, that's it. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.